Hey, yo, what's up, YouTube? Man, it's your boy, Ashton Jackson. And in today's video, I'm going to be grading the 2024 NFL draft class for the Dallas Cowboys. Already the season's already over. Playoffs start tomorrow on Saturday. Not too far removed from watching the college football semifinals between the Texas Longhorns and the Ohio State Buckeyes. So I've been watching, a lot of college players and things of that nature. So, I'm going to be overviewing the rookies from the Dallas Cowboys, former rookies, talking about what they need to improve on, what grade do I personally give them. I'm going to talk about their stats, what they did, what they need to improve on already, and things of that nature. So before we hop into the video, I appreciate if you guys like the video, subscribe if you're new, comment, and share my video with anyone who you think will enjoy. We're going to talk about Tyler Guyton that we picked at 29th. We originally was at pick 24, but we traded back 5 spots because, again, like last offseason, similar to this offseason, which I'll talk about in a few more weeks, we had a lot of needs and we needed to trade back in the draft because we had too many needs but not enough draft picks, right? So we traded back 5 spots with the Detroit Lions because they traded up and got the cornerback that they really wanted. He was Terran Arnold, right? Was the Detroit Lions pick, but we traded back 5 spots. We picked up Tyler Guyton. We picked up an additional 3rd round pick from the Detroit Lions, and Detroit Lions got their player, and he's turned out to be a really solid corner for them. And then we ended up getting Tyler Guyton, which really isn't a bad pick. I view Tyler Guyton to be a 2025 draft pick. I didn't view him to be the 2024 draft pick, and I didn't view him as a plug-and-play player. I know a lot of players and a lot of people in this community, just fans overall, were just very upset by Tyler Guyton, but for me, I already knew what it was, right? He was a rookie, first off, coming in playing a position he has never played before, which was left tackle. He hasn't played a whole lot of snaps anyway at right tackle for him to be considered a lineman. He wasn't born and bred to be an offensive lineman. So he was, everywhere on TCU playing, halfback, fullback, things of that nature. Extra dude they'll bring in on tight end, on goal line, and things of that nature. Then transferred, went to Oklahoma, played right tackle. That's where he picked up steam and had a solid year over there and was able to get drafted, right? This was a big ball of clay type of offensive tackle that we were going to draft. And I understand that we were getting spoiled in the past between, CeeDee Lamb. We were getting, spoiled with Tyler Smith, plug-and-play offensive line, Zach Martin, plug-and-play, Travis Frederick, Tyron Smith, all plug-and-play guys that we drafted in the 1st round, and they all were able to plug-and-play. So, so for them to pan out and not for Tyler Guyton to pan out, I can understand the frustration, but I understand that him playing a position he's never played before and him just being relatively new to the offensive line language in general, I didn't have a whole lot of expectation on him. So the grade that I was going to give him and that I'm going to give him is a D. He didn't perform really well this year. I'm looking at PFF in terms of his grades. I'll share them on the screen with you guys. Overall grade was 49.4. That was the lowest offensive grade that he had. He was ranked 60.2 in the pass blocking game, and the run blocking grade, he was 51.3. He played a total of 668 snaps, which ranked 56 overall in the league. He had 18 penalties. He allowed 6 sacks. He allowed 6 hits, and he allowed total pressures of 26. Tyler Guyton really had it tough for his first year, right? His first game is something that we talked about all offseason long, leading up to the game. Once we saw the schedule released in May, was that you looked at the length and the type of defensive ends that he had to go up against at least the first 6 weeks of the season. When you think about, first off, former ranked defensive player of the year and Myles Garrett, Zadarius Smith, they switched. They switched it around a little bit. He had a decent game that game, right? And then week 2, he had a struggle game. That's when the penalties started to come in a lot against the New Orleans Saints. And then, you had the Baltimore Ravens. You got kicked around in that game. And then on a short week, you played the New York Giants, and he was struggling a lot against Brian Burns, Kayvon Thibodeau, guys that we already discussed that if these guys are long and that can bend that corner, it's going to be very tough for a guy like Tyler Guyton, to deal with. And he had a tough season I feel like he needs to get better with his hands. And if he gets better with his hands, it will lessen the penalties. I feel like he also needs to finish in the run games. There's a bunch of times where I feel like he could have sealed his guy and just drove him to the ground. I understand he's not a very physical type punishing, type of bruising, type of offensive lineman. And I understood that coming out of Oklahoma. But again, these are all things that he can get better at. Considering you look at him right now, he's 22 years old. He's a very young kid. Him and I are the same age, right? So, for him, I think off-season peanut butter, he's going to get bigger, by nature with him already with the Dallas Cowboys, working out with the Dallas Cowboys, eating what the trainers and things are directing him to do. I think he will be a better player for us down the line. And if this is a player, not if this is a player, but this is a player that the Dallas Cowboys need to lean on in the future anyway, right? This is somebody that we spent a first-round draft pick. Same goes for Mozzie Smith. If we spent high draft capital on people, I think that we need to invest in them, right? Give them time and understand that this is a process. But also, if I'm the Dallas Cowboys, I'm not afraid to have a competition between Austin Richards, Chuma Edoga, Tyler Guyton to battle out for left tackle, and the best man plays and wins. I think by nature and how we are already as an organization, we already know that Tyler Guyton is going to play at left tackle regardless, because the Dallas Cowboys highly favor guys that they drafted with premium draft picks, so we know that he's going to play. But if Austin Richards is doing his part, he would look really solid this year. If he does a really good job in training camp and he outbeats Tyler Guyton, and they promote Austin Richards to left tackle too, and Tyler Guyton plays and he looks funny like how he was this year, because we saw that with Tyler Guyton. They were playing musical chairs at left tackle between him and Chuma Edoga. You'll see Tyler Guyton in on a couple of snaps, they'll take him out, put in Chuma, so on and so forth. And then shout out to the We're Doing All Right podcast with Brian Barnes and Voch Lombardi. Brian Barnes talked about a lot during the season about how Tyler Guyton has some issues with the mental makeup of the game, and him noticing the difference between and differentiating between being hurt and being injured. Everyone is dealing with something throughout the season, whether it's a nagging hamstring, AC joints, whatever the case might be. That's something that people are hurt, right? Every single player that plays a game of NFL football is going to be hurt. But it's the difference between, are you injured? Are you actually dealing with something? Are you dealing with bone spurs? Are you dealing with the torn meniscus, a partially torn meniscus? That's the difference between being injured, like going through what DeMarvin Overshown going through. That's injured compared to him just being hurt, right? Him dealing with an ankle soreness or whatever the case might be. So I think Tyler Guyton definitely has to get better. He knows that. Everyone around in the building, outside the building that covers his team at a really high level knows that Tyler Guyton has to get better. So I'm not going to down him too much, but the grade I will give him is a D. Our second round player being Marshon Kneeland. He missed the majority of the season. Not majority of the season, but he missed a lot of the season. You got to think about it. He missed ever since from that first quarter, from that Pittsburgh Steelers game. He missed from the Pittsburgh Steelers game, Detroit Lions, bye week, 49ers, Atlanta Falcons, not Steelers, but the Eagles. And then I think his first game might have been back against the Washington Commanders. Then you got to think, he also missed the Houston Texans as well. So his first real game back was against the Washington Commanders. 23 years old, 6'3", they had him ranked. He was a better ranked pass rusher than he was a run defense player. And coming out of Western Michigan, we had him ranked. Not ranked, but we had him. I was viewing him as a potential defense D-Law replacement, but also I thought he was going to be really good in the run game, which he was this year. But PFF, they have him at 47.2, and pass rushing, they have him 53.4. So they had him technically graded as a better pass rusher than a run defense type of defensive end. And, he had 10 solo tackles, 5 assisted. He had 6 stops, which is really solid for me as a rookie. And then he had 7 hurries. He had 4 quarterback hits. He had 11 total pressures. Really solid for him as well, considering that he missed, 7 to 8 games and, had to step in a lot, had to play a lot of snaps because D-Law was hurt, Michael was hurt. He had to fill in. And, I think Marshon Kneeland is definitely somebody that, again, we have to put faith in. And also, this is somebody that, again, in the offseason, I'm not I'm not overrating my guys. I understand that he's a rookie. I understand things of that nature. But if we can find a defensive end in the draft, or if we ever do free agency, we partake in that this year, which I'm not putting much stock in anyway. But if we trade for somebody, sign somebody, and they're able to come in and play better than Marshon Kneeland, so be it. But I understand, given what his season was, I will give him a D+, considering that he missed, majority of the season. When he was in, he was solid for us. He wasn't somebody that they would purposely run on his end or run on his side, and he wasn't getting bullied in the run game from what I was able to see. Things that I feel like he needs to work on is definitely getting better in the pass rush department, adding more to his toolbox, which is something that we've already discussed before. Pre-draft process, needs to find a way to stay healthy. I understand what he went through in the Pittsburgh Steelers game was a little bit freakish, but understanding that, outside of that, trying to stay healthy, just playing as much as he possibly can, adding more combat moves to his hands, so that's why he's better in the pass rush department. And that's about it, really, for Marshon Kneeland out of Western Michigan, 6'3". Has some work to improve on, but I feel like he does have a bright future ahead of him, and he will be in the rotation of the defensive ends for sure. So our first third-round pick that we selected was Cooper Beebe. And for me, Cooper Beebe, I really liked a lot coming out of K-State, Kansas State. I felt like he was a really good and smart, intelligent football player. I felt like he was able to play all 5 positions on the offensive line. I had figured that we were going to move him to center because he was able to play the interior of the offensive line. He has never played center, so that was another double negative of what the Dallas Cowboys were going through in the offseason, was that we had 2 rookies play 2 different positions they never played before in their life. And I think that's why we had such a tough time in the first couple of games in the season where our offensive line looked rough, was because of those factors, right? He was ranked 65.4 overall, was ranked 22nd out of 64 centers in the league. He was great as a better run blocking player than he was a pass blocking. He was 66.1 run blocking grade, which was a tick above average per PFF's grading scale. He had a 60.3 pass blocking grade in that department. So, he played 1,059 snaps, which ranked 14th amongst in the league. He had 3 penalties. He allowed 3 sacks, 5 hits. He had a total pressure allowed of 18. I felt that because of those snaps, I felt like Cooper Beebe had a hell of a year at center. I really liked what he was able to do on film against Vita Vea, Dexter Lawrence twice, Deron playing Jazar Newton, Keanu Benton, Cam Hayward. That was a little bit of a tough problem that we had to deal with. Aleem McNeil and DJ Reader versus the Detroit Lions. That was very tough for him as well. But I think Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis, I felt like he had, like, anybody in the division, I felt that Cooper Beebe did a really good job stopping those defensive tackles that we have in our in our division alone is already, Dexter Lawrence top 5, Jalen Carter top 10, Jordan Davis is a really solid player at his position, Deron playing, and you got the Alabama bros out in Washington, and I felt that Cooper Beebe did a hell of a job this year. I really like what he was doing. That was my favorite draft pick leading up to the second day, and accounting for the first day as well. That was my favorite pick. That's what made it for me on draft night on Friday, knowing that it was well worth trading back 5 spots to pick up that additional 3rd round pick. I feel that Cooper Beebe really saved the draft, in my opinion, with the way that he was able to play. And that's just seeing it with my eyes and what I was able to detect when I saw people break down Cooper Beebe. And even with my own eyes watching Cooper Beebe, I felt like Cooper Beebe was one of your best promising rookies of the draft class. Hopefully, again, offseason peanut butter, more offseason training with Duke Manyweather. And I think that, Duke Mayweather, I think that they will figure that out. Then you have our second 3rd round pick, Marist Liufau. I felt like he was really worth the selection. We talked about, hey, a year from now, are we going to be talking about, did we wish we draft Braylon Allen, Isaac Gurindo, Marshawn Lloyd was the biggest name that Dallas Cowboy fans were looking at, him and Braylon Allen. So I felt like it was really worth drafting Marist Liufau. We saw his pre-draft presser. not just his presser, but what was talked about when he was drafted. And we heard about the call between him and Mike Zimmer, and we saw a lot of trust within Mike Zimmer of a Marist Liufau. I think Marist Liufau had a really good year this year. He had a pass rush grade of 65.6, a run defense grade of 55.2, and a coverage grade of 46.3. I did feel that he needed to be better in the coverage game as well. He had 32 solo tackles. He forced 2 fumbles, which was 10th amongst linebackers. He had 19 stops. He had 2 sacks. He had 7 missed tackles, which he needs to improve on. He had a passer rating allowed of 95.3, and he had total pressures of 12. Again, a work in progress. This was somebody that was slated to be picked on day 3, but this was a really good linebacker coming from Notre Dame. They'll be playing the national championship, but coming from that Marcus Freeman, that Notre Dame type system, and for him to come over and transition to the NFL was honestly going to be a no-brainer. You talked about and you heard about a lot in his pre-draft presser that how well of a player he was and how mature he is, how well he understands the game at such a young age. I really like what Marist Liufau is going to bring for the Dallas Cowboys at 6'2". Like I said, he needs to get better in the coverage grade and the coverage area aspect of the NFL, but I think that's going to come with, playing more snaps, being around Eric Kendricks more. I feel like Marist Liufau is going to be a damn good linebacker in this league. Him and Overshown. Prayerfully, Overshown doesn't have any setbacks and he doesn't have anything that's going to be a flaw or that's going to take away from his athleticism, because he's had 2 significant lower body injuries. And he's such an explosive linebacker. I would love to see those 2 play for, multiple games together of those 2. We saw a sneak peek of that against the Pittsburgh Steelers. I really like what we got in Marist Liufau this year, especially in the time in which, leading from December 15th all the way to the end of the season, when he played really great and showed out versus the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, where he caused 2 fumbles, sacking the quarterback, then on the tight end, knocking the wind out of him, passing up, PBUs throughout the year, whether it was against the Pittsburgh Steelers. I got a screenshot of that, and there was so many highlights to look at from this linebacker room, and it was fun watching this linebacker room overall, and it was fun watching Marist Liufau. He has a lot to improve on. Of course, again, offseason peanut butter has to be better in the run game department in terms of seeing it, hitting it, and going, and then also being better in pass coverage. But again, I think experience, watching film, him breaking down his own tape, him figuring out what he needs to get better on, he will improve. And I think that there was a well worth of a draft pick adding to this linebacker room, right? The other draft picks, Kalen Carson. I felt like Kalen Carson was a solid draft pick for you. First, that's what I initially had thought coming out of Wake Forest. They're nicknaming him Seatbelt. Dak Prescott didn't even know his first name. They just called him Seatbelt, and that's what he referred to him as. But, once the season came, he wasn't Seatbelt, right? He was getting burned a lot, but I just felt that if, he had a tough start, dealing with some injuries. You were, the 5th cornerback on the depth chart, and then DeRon Bland steps wrong. He's out for 4 months of NFL football. And then you got to think about also, Trayvon Diggs was dealing with some injuries. Jordan Lewis was your best slot player. So he quickly got elevated to cornerback 2, and him having to see the second best receiver, or some of these teams out motion a lot with the San Francisco 49ers. He was dealing with a lot of really good wide receivers, right? So I feel like Kevin Carson, I feel like the lights were too big for him right now as a rookie. I feel that he will get better, again, with more experience, offseason peanut butter, reviewing things over with tape and things of that nature. But right now, Kevin Carson is what it is. But again, he doesn't stop me from drafting another corner or drafting 2 corners and looking for somebody else in free agency. He's not stopping me from that. Ryan Flournoy, he showed some promise in the preseason against the Raiders. He had a really solid game in his NFL debut versus the Tampa Bay Buccaneers when he had to step in. He was solid. Nathan Thomas, non-applicable. I can't really grade him. Justin Rogers, non-applicable. We got him back from the Cincinnati Bengals. I can't really grade those 2 draft picks. Ryan Flournoy, his ceiling for me is a wide receiver 3, but I see him around that wide receiver 5, 4 type of position. I don't see him cracking the top 2 spots. I don't see him being a really nice Robin to a Batman of CeeDee Lamb. I felt like we need a pairing mate that I'm going to talk about in my next video. Is going to be talking about how I feel like we need to add more weapons around CeeDee Lamb and Dak Prescott. So again, reviewing over this draft class, I forgot to give grades to Cooper Beebe. I will give him a B. Marist Liufau, I'll give him a C+. Again, considering what those years were for these guys, and it was a very tough year for us overall. But I was decently surprised with Cooper Beebe, Marist Liufau. I liked what we got out of that. Marshon Kneeland, Tyler Guyton, they have a lot of room to grow, especially Tyler Guyton. Marshon Kneeland needs to stay healthy, but I think he will get better with due time. Same with all of these players, right? Kellen Carson, I feel like the lights were too big for him. Nathan Tobbins, hopefully he's able to be your right guard and pace, hopefully he can play inside for you and be a player that can be solid for you. And then Justin Rogers, again, hopefully he's just a rotational defensive tackle that leads to depth and, somebody that's on the practice squad that you can elevate in need of a dire situation. He can play solid football for you. So that's about it for the video. Hope you guys have a nice day. Stay safe, stay blessed. Bye.